Ever scrolled through social media and seen those posts?
Hmm.
You know the ones I mean, the ones that make you stop and go, wait, what?
I think we all have.
Right. Well, we found one of those. It's basically this whole thought piece someone wrote, and the gist is, get this, the U.S. might not be a true democracy.
Interesting.
Yeah, wild right. And we're going to, totally unpack it all. So by the end of this deep dive, you can decide, is the U.S. a true democracy? Or are we all living a lie?
Well, first, we have to define our terms. I mean, what do we even mean by true democracy? We threw that word democracy around a lot.
Exactly. And this source, it kind of hits you with this line. It says, the U.S. has never been a true democracy. Point blank. Doesn't pull any punches.
Yeah, and that's a loaded statement, right? Because like you said, what even i.e. true democracy? I mean, technically, a true or direct democracy means everyone votes on everything. Every single decision, every law.
Whoa. Imagine that. Congress would be in session 24/7.
Exactly, it'd be chaos. So
Yeah.
realistically, most modern nations we call democracies are actually republics or representative democracies. We elect people to make those decisions for us.
Which is kind of what the U.S. does, right? We've got the whole shebang, president, Congress, the works.
Exactly. But even within that system, this source points out how things get kind of wonky, especially with the Electoral College.
Ugh, the Electoral College. Don't get me started. Every 4 years, it makes everyone lose their minds.
Right. And for good reason. Because remember, in the U.S., it's not always about who gets the most votes overall. It's about who wins the right combination of states and their assigned electoral votes.
Okay. For anyone who's been living under a rock, think of it like a board game, right?
Like this. Go on.
Say, to win the game, it's not about getting the most points, but about controlling certain territories on the board.
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
Exactly. You could have a ton of points, but if you don't control the right territories, you lose. That's kind of like the Electoral College.
Yeah, it definitely throws a wrench in that whole one person, one vote idea, which this source talks about too. And it's not just theoretical, right? I mean, look at the 2016 election. Hillary Clinton won the popular vote by nearly 3 million votes.
I remember. Everyone was glued to their TVs.
But Trump became president because he snagged the Electoral College victory. It proves that this system can lead to a different outcome than a straight-up popular vote.
It makes you wonder if things would be different if we just, counted all the votes equally across the country, right?
Right, it definitely raises some questions. And it's not just the presidency, by the way. This source also digs into the Senate and how that's structured.
2 senators per state, no matter what. I mean, California's got, 40 million people? Wyoming has, 500,000. Yet they get the same number of senators.
It's true. And the source really makes you think, does that kind of representation where a vote in a less populated state holds more weight than a vote in a more populated state really scream democracy?
It's like, is my vote actually equal to someone else's just because we live in different states? It's a brain twister for sure.
It really is. And it gets even more complex when you consider the historical context of voting rights in the U.S., which this piece also brings up. I mean, for a huge chunk of U.S. history, it wasn't we the people. It was more like we the white landowning men.
True.
Yeah.
Women couldn't even vote.
Yeah.
And let's not even get started on the disenfranchisement of Black Americans and other minority groups.
Exactly. So the source argues that this whole narrative of the U.S. being this perfect model of democracy from the get-go, it kind of falls apart under scrutiny.
Right. And it's not like those historical inequalities just vanished overnight. I mean, think about all the debates we're seeing right now about voting rights, voter ID laws, access to polling places, gerrymandering.
Yeah, and all those things disproportionately impact minority communities and make it harder for them to vote.
It makes you wonder, are we really living up to that whole government by the people for the people thing? Something to think about.
Definitely.
Or where does this all leave us? Well, it seems like the U.S. might be a little more complicated than just a simple democracy.
Right. And maybe that's okay. I mean, no system is perfect, right? But it's as important to be aware of the system's flaws. To ask ourselves, if we could redesign things from scratch, knowing what we know now, would we make the same choices?
I mean, would we still have the Electoral College? Would the Senate be structured the same way?
Those are the questions the source really pushes us to grapple with. And honestly, there's no easy answer.
No, not at all. But that's the beauty of critical thinking, right? We get to wrestle with these big, messy ideas and form our own opinions. So to our listeners, what do you think? Is the U.S. a true democracy? We've given you a lot to chew on today, and we want to hear from you. Hit us up on social media, join the conversation, and until next time, stay curious, everybody.
Absolutely. Keep learning and keep asking those tough questions.